Gut. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the media conference at the home of FIFA. We have interpretation. Here it is. Interpretation, Channel 1 English, 2 French, 3 Spanish, and 4 German. I will shortly give the floor to the President for a summary of the last 2 days, and then ask Dr. Zwanziger for a summary of his work, then to the General Secretary, and before anything else, we will give the floor to Mr. Marcos Katnam to present to you the financial report with some salient points and questions regarding the financial report. I would kindly ask you to raise right after his presentation. Then we have dealt with that, and then the floor is open for further questions. But first and foremost, Mr. President, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you, Walter. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the home of FIFA. On this Friday, 20th of March, 2015. It is a pleasure for me to present to you some important points of the meeting that was held today with the Executive Committee of FIFA. Yesterday, we met from 2 to 5:30 in the afternoon, and today from 9 till noon. One member of the ExCo was missing, Mr. Lefkaritis, that due to health reasons could not be with us. We had an agenda that did not have too many items, but that nevertheless had important points that had to be discussed. I will spare you the details. These details will be included in the press release, and all the sports details will be conveyed by the Secretary General. I will only focus on 2 or 3 major points in this meeting. Obviously, we need to talk about Qatar, because Saturday and Sunday last, I had a meeting with His Highness, the Emir of the State of Qatar, and we discussed many different points, one of which you are familiar with because we communicated it yesterday evening, which proves that after the first half of an ExCo meeting, we need to inform the media in the future when decisions have been made. That's why we have open avenues of communication and transparency. So I won't go back on that, but I do want to mention what was discussed regarding the workers, or rather the working conditions for those who work in the World Cup in Qatar, but that also work in other construction because Qatar is building a new state. Well, I can tell you that the news we have is reassuring. It's positive news. And the Secretary General will provide some more detailed information on this. I will only say that right now Qatar is playing in an open meeting. They have recently received the Deputy Minister of Germany, the second in the executive branch after Angela Merkel, Mr. Gabriel. And he has expressed positive views in his official report. But this positive news was, by a certain brand of the press, was conveyed negatively. However, we believe, and we are convinced that we are moving forward. We are moving forward also because we have been told that FIFA can participate via an individual of our choosing to follow the work. We can go there every day, every other day, every 2 weeks. They have an open-door policy. Another point which needed to be mentioned in this meeting, or with respect to this meeting, and it's important for me and for many national associations, is the topic of political interference in football and sports in general. We have at our disposal here the statutes of FIFA, and these are crystal clear on that topic. We have the Olympic Charter of the IOC. The IOC, in its last meeting in Monaco in December, took a very strong resolution in favor of the autonomy of sport. And the IOC based it itself on a UN resolution of October of last year. And in that UN resolution, it is the autonomy of sport is mentioned. We don't talk about independence because we are subject, obviously, to the laws of every country, but we are autonomous when it comes to organizing our competitions. This autonomy is protected. And in this UN resolution, what is mentioned is that political authorities should not interfere and intervene in the autonomy of sport. The message is leave sports alone. So what we've seen at FIFA, that there has been increasingly more interference. There are cases open in Africa, in Europe, there are cases open in South America. And that's why I made the Executive Committee take a decision today that basically means, in a nutshell, stop with this political interference in our sport. We talked about the FIFA Congress. We talked about the agenda for this Congress. Please remember this Congress will take place here in Zurich. It will start with a medical Congress, but the Congress proper will take place the afternoon of the 28th of May and also the 29th. This will also be an electoral Congress. The Secretary General will also provide information on an agreement we've reached with other stakeholders in our sport, such as the ECA. And so I end my opening statement. I am at your disposal afterwards for the questions and answers. And I give the floor directly now to Mr. Theo Svansiger, who will now provide information to you on the completion and end of the reforms of FIFA that started in 2011 and where things stand right now. You have the floor, Mr. Svansiger.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I'm very happy that at the end of this process I can draw a balance. Well, this task was entrusted to me, and I was quite aware of the fact that this was not going to be simple. There was pressure on FIFA for reforms. Remember the decision at the end of 2010 as to the attribution of the World Cup mainly to Qatar had created some unrest, which lasts until today. And it was necessary and indicated to find answers for that. So everything has to be done also from the structure that this does not repeat itself, but also take a close look at how this actually came about. The first and most important point we tackled was in the Statutes Committee to look at the attribution of the World Cups, the Men's World Cup, in the Executive Committee in secret vote. The vote for Qatar was made with 14-8 votes. And now, thanks to the Congresses of FIFA, this has been given a new form. And the Congress, now with 209 members, will decide in a very clear and transparent way about the pre-selection, and then there will be the proper selection as to who will be the organizer of a World Cup. So I think this first point has been dealt with in a professional and factual manner. Now, the second point was equally demanding. It was to look into the behavior of officials. You all who know and love football know that what happens on the pitch is transparent. A player who does not abide by the laws of the game will get a yellow or a red card, after which a disciplinary procedure will ensure to have him sanctioned. Well, not everywhere you have this level of transparency, and this being so, it is important that at the beginning of the career of an official in football, during his career and at the end of a career, a control should take place. And we have now taken into account a credibility check, and then to also have an independent ethics committee who would look into that. Now, this independent ethics committee is made up by two chambers. And independence in this context means not only not be subject to any kind of orders given by anybody, but also that this must be a person with a high professional competence if he is to be called for this kind of duty, and must not have had in the past any kind of proximity to FIFA, commercially or otherwise. And when in such a case, they will have to give up these positions. This should guarantee an independence in their judgment. It should also guarantee that they do not come into close contact with friends who are in official bodies. And it is always difficult in the case of not abiding by the rules. It is difficult then, of course, to avoid friends you have been working with for so many years. So it is definitely difficult to create structural independence, but it has been achieved, and I think the work has been started also in a positive manner in the Ethics Committee. Decisions have been taken which concern members of the Executive Committee. And it was also very important to make sure that this Ethics Committee has the right to judge procedures in the past that actually happened before the Ethics Committee was created. So I think it was a success, also thanks to the assistance of Professor Piet, and to include also the evaluation of the attribution of the World Cup 2022. So this is now the duty of the Ethics Committee to take a long look into the attribution of the World Cups in 2010. And it is not only the duty of the chairman of the Ethics Committee, but also the chairman of the two chambers. We are to expect that in due course the public will be informed about the results. And in December in the Executive Committee, we also did our, because we decided that the Garcia report will be published in due course. So, Congress ethics, observing the attitude of officials, and then the financial aspects. I can be short as to the financial aspects. Mr. Kuttner will mention that. And the Audit and Compliance Committee has the necessary independence since its inception, meaning that the personalities involved there are definitely taking a close look at any monies flowing from or to FIFA. There's quite a number of details on top of that needn't be mentioned here. But I can also tell you what we have not achieved. It's not sufficient to mention only the nice parts. The fact that we do not have a limitation of mandate. Now, this is one particular point where I say to myself I would have liked to have had that. And in January 2013, due to the decision of UEFA in Nyon that a limitation of mandate would be applicable only to the president and not to the other members of the ExCo, then we would have, I believe, had no majority. And as you understand, you need a majority to pass these innovations. So that was not a success. Another element where I would have liked to see a further democratization of FIFA. Well, FIFA is a democratic institution, but it does have a problem that should be eliminated sooner or later. When you talk about FIFA, you talk about the decisions taken by the Executive Committee, composed by 25 people now. But only 2 people, the president and the representative of women's football, are elected by Congress. All the other members are being elected by the confederations and are sent by the confederations to FIFA. This means that there is no participation by the Parliament of FIFA, as it were. And this now is some kind of play, in the sense that if you are sent by UEFA to FIFA, you will have to defend the interests of UEFA in FIFA. And that is an element that if you transpose it to Germany, if you have, for instance, the government elected by the different areas in Germany and the chancellor elected centrally, that wouldn't work. Well, that, for instance, we would have liked to see also representatives of club football present in a committee of their own, for instance. Well, the principle applies. The clubs belong to the associations, and therefore the associations defend the interests of their clubs in their countries. I would have liked very much to have a more modern constitution of FIFA. But as it stands, I'm very satisfied. I know what associations are like. It's difficult. And if you want to have a majority to change the statutes to thirds, three-quarters, whatever, you must be able to take a lot of people on board. And then you can always hear the argument, yes, we've done a lot. But I've been ambitious all my life. I'm still ambitious. I can say we have made the right moves. We have made a lot of steps forward. There's a few steps missing. In a nutshell, Mr. President, here I come to an end, and what applies to FIFA must be discussed with the associations and the other stakeholders in football. Now, we have presented a recommendation to create working groups, and will then have to be looked into by the committees and then eventually decided by the Executive Committee, where actually we're looking into the question up to what extent the independence of a people can be blended better into the institution. A sports association, that is very nice, is made up of people looking into the same direction, who have been friends for many years, who know each other well. A sports association does not have an opposition like in political remits, but, and this is my deep conviction, then it is necessary that the behavior all those who have these responsibilities, these must be controlled in an independent manner. This must not weaken the association, and there I think FIFA has set new standards by the creation of the Ethics Committee, and this is an example for the other sports associations. Thank you, Mr. President, for having entrusted these duties to me. We have done a successful work, not perhaps in every aspect, but I'm very happy and I'm grateful that I was able to do this work for FIFA and for you. And I would like to say here, let me tell you, I'm totally independent. I really don't have to say thank you to anybody, but I know also that the president is always siding with the people pushing forward the reforms. And without the support of the president in such a difficult remit, you cannot make headway. So thank you, President, for fulfilling what you promised in 2011. You have supported my work until the very last second. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Dr. Zwanziger, for these comments. I would like to give the floor right now to Jérôme Valcke.
I will speak about the World Cups, and I will start to speak about the World Cups from 18 to 26, because we have always to look in the future, so let's speak about 26 at the end. As you may know, for the World Cups 2010 and 2014, we, as by the way UEFA did for the Euro 2012 as 2016, we finalized an agreement not only with the European Club Association, ECA, it's the only one association representing a group of clubs, but for all the clubs around the world, all the clubs who are providing players when the World Cup is played. To give you an idea, in 2014 it's more than 400 clubs from 57 associations, member associations, who provide the players to the 32 teams who played the final tournament in Brazil. So in 2010 and 2014, we agreed to pay an amount of 40 million for 2010. It was a bit last minute. And at the same time, we have agreed to have for 2014, 70 million, so 110 million altogether. In this agreement, it's covering a number of points. It's a memorandum of understanding, an agreement between the clubs and FIFA, which is not just about money, it's about a number of programs we are doing together, clubs and FIFA. The main argument is to recognize that the players are coming from clubs, that the clubs are the ones who are paying the players, and without players you would have no World Cup. So it's clear that it's the most important part of the World Cup to have all these players playing at the World Cup. In order to do so, we enter into negotiation before the World Cup 2014, and we are not able to finalize an agreement by then. We agreed that we should meet again after the World Cup 2014 to discuss about 18 and 2022. And based on the success of the result of 2014, we had a few meetings, and we have decided to extend this agreement again with ECA, but also with all the clubs of the world from all the different confederations. And we agreed on an amount of 209 million for 2018 and 209 million for 2022. It was clear from our side that we want to have an agreement which is covering 2022 and that will not enter into additional negotiations after 2018 for the World Cup 2022. So the agreement is covering 2 World Cups as we did before with 10 and 14. The 209 millions can be an amount which is familiar to you. It's exactly the same amount than the amount which is paid to the 209 member association as per the FAP. We pay 1 million per member association per cycle, so it's 209 millions. The difference is that the clubs will not be associated to the potential additional success of the World Cup as we did with the 209 member associations, which received $1,050,000 US after the World Cup 2014 due to the great success of the World Cup 2014. So, long story short, we have an extension of the current agreement with the clubs for the period 18 and 22, and it's a very important thing for us to make sure that we can work in a very good way, in a very good partnership with all the clubs around the world, and that will all be part of the success of the World Cup. I will never use the word that it's in exchange of the release of the players, because it has nothing to do with the release of the players. It's part of the FIFA statutes, the obligation to release players. I will never use the fact that or what I have already read, that it's a compensation to the clubs based on the decision we have made on 2022, because again, it's an extension of a current agreement we have had for the World Cups 10 and 14. Talking about 2022, as the FIFA president said, you are perfectly aware about the decision of yesterday, which is to play the final of the World Cup 2022 on Sunday, the 18th of December 2022, which is the same day as the Independence Day of Qatar. It will be now a group to discuss about the international calendar. So I'm talking about the period 2022. The international calendar, as you know, is not just about the World Cup dates. It's about all the continental competitions. It's about all the dates which are played by the different confederations. So now we have to put together the new dates of the World Cup 2022 within the international calendars to look at the international dates. What do we do with the date of October 2022? What do we do with the date of September 2022? We are working, you know, in a country where the final decision on the number of stadiums we will use will be by the end of 2015. We are currently working on 8 stadiums format. So that's also something to be discussed with the match calendar. We are working on a shorter format of the World Cup, 28 days. We have also to work on the period of release of players, knowing that it will be more or less 25% of the season after they will have to play the World Cup. So these are all the dates we have to work with this group for the international calendar. We will not wait long, and I hope that this group will meet in the next weeks, and that by the end of 2015 we will definitely be able to agree between all the stakeholders on the international match calendar for the period 2022. Talking about Qatar, as the FIFA president said, and I know that, my words were a bit criticized at the time when I say that the working conditions in Qatar are at a level of standard which is quite satisfactory. I repeat what I've said. Yes, in the 5 stadiums which are under construction in Qatar, the standard for the workers is definitely higher than in maybe any other construction sites in Qatar. And what the Emir of Qatar told the FIFA president when they met last Sunday is that this standard should become the benchmark for all the construction in Qatar. So that's the goal. I mean, again, the Supreme Committee, following discussion with FIFA, following all the meetings they have had with the different international labor organizations, they reach a standard which is a standard where, again, we are working regularly together. We are part of this independent committee. We are following the work they are doing and making sure that the standards which are applied for all the construction sites related to the FIFA World Cup 2022 are what you can accept and have nothing against the conditions of the workers. I think that is about the World Cup 2022, and I just want briefly to come on the World Cup 2026. The World Cup 2026 will be played in 2026, and based on what we think should be played in June, July 2026. What is important is that we worked for the last 12 months with the Audit and Compliance Committee members as we worked with the Ethics Committee members and their chairman, and we got all their feedback about the remark they have had on the bidding process for 18 and 2022. With the administration, we are already far advanced in the regulation for this bidding process, and the Executive Committee made the decision that the World Cup 2026, which has to be decided by the FIFA Congress, as Mr. Swanziger has explained, will be decided the day before the Congress 2017. So we will add a special day before the Congress 2017 in Kuala Lumpur, and this day will be just for the decision on who will be the organizer for the World Cup 2026. We will release to the confederations and working with the different committees the bidding regulations, and we will bring these bidding regulations for the executive committee we have here in May, for this executive committee to approve these bidding regulations and to start the bidding process a few days after. So it will be, there are a number of decisions, and I will give you more details at the next meeting, but these regulations will meet or reach the level of transparency from the first minute of the process to the decision-making process. Again, I mean, it's an open vote from the Congress to be done in 2017 to determine who will be the host for the World Cup 2026. So that's what I can say about the World Cup 2026. I don't know what else I have to say, or you ask me to talk about. Nothing else? It's okay? Yes. There was a decision made by the FIFA Executive Committee that on the 30th of May, so the day after the Congress, the day after the election, the day after the new FIFA president is in charge, there should be a meeting of the FIFA Executive Committee. One of the reasons is that a number of the members of the current Executive Committee will change. You know that we have elections in the different confederations, and the number of current members, I think it's close to 7 to 8 members, will be different by the 29th of May, when we will have they will be installed during the FIFA Congress, and the idea is to have a special meeting on the 30th of May to look at the new composition of the Executive Committee, to look at the new composition of the Emergency Committee as the Finance Committee, to look at the chair for all the different committees we have, and also one important point on the agenda, it's the slots for the World Cups 2018 and 2022. So few important items to be discussed in the morning of the 30th of May 2015 after the FIFA Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jérôme. And now I would like to ask Markus Kattner to come and present his finance report.
Thank you, Walter. I have the pleasure to present to you the results that we have obtained for the year 2014, but also for the entire 2011 to 2014 cycle, because as you know, our financial period extends over a 4-year cycle, which ends with the FIFA World Cup. So only once the FIFA World Cup has been played, we are able to draw a meaningful conclusion on the 4-year period. All figures that I'm going to present now are in US dollar, which is our balance sheet currency. The consolidated financial statements for 2014 and the entire period 2011 to 2014 are in accordance with the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standard, and have been audited by KPMG. They have been approved yesterday by the Finance Committee and this morning by the Executive Committee. So I would like to deliver 5 key messages to you. First of all, the financial period 2011 to 2014 was a great operational and financial success. FIFA has invested $3.9 billion directly in football during this period. Over $1 billion were invested in football development projects. We have a solid financial situation and level of reserves, and the solidarity model on which the FIFA World Cup is based upon has proved to be successful. We have all information that I'm going to present to you also in the financial report. It's a 150-page document that you find already online and which will be handed to you later on. So to start with the first point, FIFA has, for the period 2011 to 2014, recorded a total revenue of $5.718 billion, mostly from the commercialization of television and marketing rights in relation to the 2014 FIFA World Cup. The FIFA World Cup itself contributed $4.826 billion to this revenue, and I will explain this more in detail later in my presentation. Total expenses for the same period amounted to $5.380 billion, which led to a 4-year result of $338 million. Of the total expenses of $5.38 billion, 28% are operating and other expenses, including, for example, the cost for our 474 employees, our infrastructure in Zurich, but also, and I kindly ask you to take note of this, taxes of 75 million, since FIFA is paying ordinary profit taxes according to Swiss taxation rules. More importantly, however, 72% or $3.9 billion of the total expenses were directly invested in football. This included the operational cost for the 2014 FIFA World Cup with around 2.2 billion, 23 other FIFA events such as the Under-20 or Under-17 Men's and Women's World Cup of a total of 505 million, the so-called club protection program of 88 million, under which clubs are compensated in case their players get injured during the World Cup, and in particular, all football development-related projects of 1 billion and 52 million, which I will explain more in detail on the next slide. Thanks to the success of the FIFA World Cup, FIFA was able to spend more than ever on football development all around the world, with more than 1 billion invested in a variety of projects in its 209 member associations and the 6 confederations. An important part of this investment went through 2 well-established FIFA programs with 214 million and 261 million respectively for the financial assistance program, which enables every member association to finance development programs and football activities, and many of them to simply carry out their daily work. 123 million dedicated to the funding of 200 goal projects across the globe, focusing mainly on football infrastructure. FIFA has supported 700 goal projects across 205 member associations since 1999. In addition, a number of new programs were created to respond to the evolving and different needs of the respective member associations. These new approaches include, for example, Performance, which is a football management program that provides associations with the knowledge and tools to be better administered and self-sufficient. The Challenger program, a tailor-made assistance program for the poorest associations, and the Connect program, which aims at creating a worldwide registration of all football stakeholders, including players. If we put these football development activities in the historic context, you can see that FIFA's expenses for development have significantly increased over the last 16 years. The present slide shows the development expenses for each 4-year cycle since 1998. You can see that since 1998, FIFA's expenses for football development have multiplied by a factor of 75. Despite of all these comprehensive and ever-increasing development projects, FIFA today can show a solid balance sheet. FIFA's balance sheet volume amounts to $2.9 billion, including current assets and non-current assets of $2.1 billion and $804 million, respectively. With current liabilities of $1.3 billion and non-current liabilities of $95 million, this leaves total reserves at the 31st of December 2014 of $1.523 billion. Over the last 8 years, FIFA was able to continuously strengthen its reserves. Nevertheless, as you can see, the growth over the last 4 years was significantly smaller, based on the decision by the FIFA Congress in 2010 to only moderately further increase the reserves. It is important to note that FIFA always needs sufficient reserves to be able to react to unforeseen events and to cover potential risks in relation to the FIFA World Cup, because we are strongly financially dependent on the World Cup, which takes place only once every 4 years. In any case, FIFA's reserves are restricted and may be only used in line with FIFA statutory provisions. In order to conclude, I would like to illustrate how FIFA's model of solidarity works for the FIFA World Cup. You know that FIFA has 209 member associations, of which only 32 qualify for the final round of the FIFA World Cup, which is FIFA's main source of income. The 2014 FIFA World Cup generated 4.826 billion of revenue, as I have mentioned at the beginning. The cost for the 2014 FIFA World Cup amounted to 2.2 billion, including organizational cost of 1.648 billion and another 576 million paid to the participating teams and clubs. This means that 576 million were given to the FIFA World Cup participants in form of prize money, benefits and other. This reflects the principle of performance applied to the World Cup participants. On the other hand, the resulting surplus of the World Cup, which amounts to 2.514 billion, was mainly used based on the principle of solidarity. This means that 71% of the surplus was used for solidarity in the form of football development projects of 1 billion, as I have explained before, and other FIFA tournaments of 505 million, as well as football governance activities. The remaining 29% were used to cover parts of FIFA's operating expenses. Overall, I think we can see that the model of solidarity allows FIFA to support all of its 209 member associations in order to help them to be among the 32 teams which qualify for the World Cup one day. With this, I would like to conclude the summary on the finances and give you the opportunity for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Markus. As I said in the very beginning, any questions related to the presentation that Markus Kattner just held, please ask now. Otherwise, yes. Keir, please.
Thank you. Keir Adnich, World Soccer. Markus, just on the level of reserves, how is that actually calculated and worked out that that is appropriate to FIFA's needs?
Well, I think there is no precise mathematical definition of how much reserves we actually need. What we are presenting here is our assumption that about 1/3 of our future 4-year costs are covered through reserves because, as you know, it's very difficult to insure our World Cup against various risks. And therefore, we believe that with this level of reserves, we are in a reasonable order of magnitude.
There is a response to that. If you look at the documents which have been presented, we have this reserve in case that for whatever reason a World Cup cannot be played in the year when it is foreseen. And you know, we are now in a World Cup in 2018, where there is a lot of rumors around. We have the World Cup 2022 that hopefully now it will calm down. So if we don't have the World Cup in 1 year, we need about 1 billion we need to go on with our development programs. As it has been said, we need that. And the other 300 million we are using for the development competitions, which are the under 20 and the under 17 men, boys and girls. This is the characteristic of our reserve. It is linked to a non-World Cup being played 1 year.
Next question, only related to this topic. Yes, please. No. Well, yeah, go. Over there, please. Yeah.
Johannes Ritter von der...
Johannes Ritter, FAZ, Frankfurt. I have 2 questions to this subject. Of course, one calls that a lump risk, a World Cup being played every 4 years only. How well are you prepared for the emergency case, like, for instance, looking forward to Russia? Do you have a plan B if for whatever reason it could have to be cancelled? And then to understand these 1.5 billion, would they be sufficient to really compensate for that? Or did I misunderstand something, compensation payments, lawsuits, etc.? They could be quite voluminous. And secondly, in the report, it is said that the salaries of the FIFA executives are being calculated according to certain formulas. Of course, an amount is not mentioned there. for your salary, Mr. Blatter, and Mr. Domenico Scala had just requested that the salaries of top executives should be laid open. What does that mean for you? Do you want to do that now that you may want to set a good example and tell us what you made last year? These are two subjects which you are mentioning. We do not have a plan B for the World Cup. We never had one in the past. And as to the risk, it is definitely difficult to forecast possible risks, to forecast what could happen. But all in all, FIFA has a lot of experience in organizing World Cups, not always under the best possible conditions, and I think we will be able to react in an adverse situation. And 1.5 billion allow us to carry on our work and to have the necessary conditions to carry out the development activities of FIFA. Now, as to the salaries, on page 136, we have laid open the salaries of all key management people in FIFA, and this is according to our obligations, and we are quite pleased to do that. And normally, presenting the salaries of the people has to be done according to the companies listed in stock exchange. We believe that there's no additional value generated by publishing these salaries. The important thing for us is the governance that establishes these salaries. And this is also explained in the financial report. We have a governance part, and there it says on what basis these salaries are calculated and established, because this is made strictly by the compensation subcommittee. You have the chairman, Hans Kala, from the audit committee. You have an independent third person and the chairman of our finance committee representing FIFA. The process is laid down clearly in the compensation policy. This has been established by the compensation subcommittee according to specific criteria, and in the governance part of our report, we have indicated the benchmarks to compare the salaries, and this can be guaranteed.
And here, Brian.
Hi, it's a question for Brian Swanson from Sky Sports News HQ. Just to pick up on a point you said there earlier, we wouldn't want to misquote you, but with regards to the FIFA reserves and Russia 2018, you mentioned rumours. Is there any doubt in your mind over Russia 2018, or will it take place 100%?
What is 100%? The World Cup will take place in Russia in 2018. That's sure. That's sure. And they are working very hard. And boycott of a World Cup or of any sporting event has never brought any solutions to nobody. And therefore, I'm very happy that about the last news coming out 2 days or 3 days ago in Germany, it was immediately an answer by the IOC President, Mr. Bach, and by the DFB President, Wolfgang Niersbach. No boycott of the World Cup in Russia. Contrary, in my opinion, the World Cup in Russia will be able to stabilize all the situation that in this region of Europe, because it's part of Europe, all this region is suffering now. I'm sure that football is stronger than any other movement. When I'm looking on the geopolitical map today, and I'm looking towards Afghanistan, I'm looking towards Iraq, towards Lebanon, towards Syria, towards Palestine, in all these countries where there have been or still are belligerent activities, football is played, Women's football is played. Men's football is played. Syria, in this difficult situation, 3 years of civil war, the under-17 team from Syria, men's team, is qualified to go to Chile this year in October. This shows what football is, and football has never been the objective of any attack in this region. Football is respected because football is giving emotion to this population. Football is connecting people, and this will be the same at the level of the World Cup. Thank you.
Thank you. So, if there is any question now to finance, otherwise I would ask Marcus, we open the discussion. Yes, David?
Just one quick question on the finances and on the benchmarking of salaries. How can it be clear that the salaries are open and transparent and accurately benchmarked against other similar organisations if we don't know what the salaries are? Do we just have to trust you?
You don't have to trust me, you have to trust in the work which has been performed by this independent compensation subcommittee. And I think the work that was done was professional as far as I can have an opinion on it. But otherwise you have directly, I think, to ask them, and that's all I can say about this. You have the details in the financial report. It's disclosed on page 76, where you find some further information on this. So maybe you want to have a look there, and if you have further questions, I'm happy maybe to follow up on that.
Okay. Jamil, please. Here.
Mr. Blatter, Jamil Chade from Brazil. My question is about the government interference that you mentioned earlier today. Yesterday, we had President Dilma Rousseff proposing a law on refinancing of clubs, but with the requirement that these clubs would have, and the federations also, have a limit in their mandates for president, et cetera, et cetera. Is this the way forward, or is this a situation where, for example, you would say it is a government interference that should not happen? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. You know, we are not the police, and to go and to investigate in the different countries in the world if something happened when it comes to political interference. When I speak about political interference is when the national association concerned, and in this case, if the CBF, Confederação Brasileira de Futebol, they would ask us, or they would say there is an interference, then we would intervene. When I speak also about interference, if when the European, European Parliament, the Parliamentary Commission or committee is asking for the boycott of the World Cup. First, 3 or 4 months ago, it was the boycott the World Cup in Qatar. Now they are asking to boycott the World Cup in Russia. This is a direct interference. But also in the National Association, in your case, CBF should give us this item, and our legal system would then go in and take a decision. Thank you.
Herr Harm, bitte.
Herr Blatter,
Mr. Blatter, 2 questions to you. The first one, what do you expect from the Garcia report, and is there a time frame for that? And secondly, Bonita Mercedes and Fedra Al-Majid, their declarations, what do you think of them?
Was haben Sie gesagt?
What did they say? As to the ECCOT report, they made comments.
Dr. Zwanziger.
Dr. Zwanziger has just spoken about this report. He is a lawyer, and perhaps you could just summarize what you said related to the Garcia report. and why the FIFA Executive Committee cannot publish this report, please. The Ethics Committee is independent. Both its chambers are independent, and they are responsible for what they do. They do not provide information to officials of FIFA or other associations, but they are responsible for what they investigate. They are responsible of what they sanction eventually. Now, in the context of the Garcia report, there was a question whether the report as such could be published. Now, in the Ethics Committee regulations are against it, basically. Nevertheless, the Executive Committee in charge of the Ethics Committee regulations, in the light of the importance of this matter, therefore entitled the Ethics Committee to publish this report, but at a point in time where the Ethics Committee considers this appropriate. So, in a nutshell, you would have to address these questions to Mr. Borbeli and to Mr. Eckert. This is due to the changes of the regulations of FIFA. This is a separation of powers.
The last three questions.
I've never heard about these two ladies. I know nothing about them. I cannot know everything.
Ben, please.
A question for the President. Now the World Cup in Qatar has been moved to the winter. Is it time for you to apologise on behalf of the FIFA ExCo and on behalf of FIFA as a whole for everything that has happened in the 2010 vote, everything after that, the fact that the premise for the bidding was for the summer and now it's at the winter, and it's caused all these problems that we've seen in recent years? Do you need now to draw a line on this and say sorry to the football world?
Listen, this is a question, then I would take it up and I will discuss it in the Executive Committee, and probably we will give it to the Ethics Committee. This was a decision taken by an Executive Committee of FIFA. They had the right to do it, and if you are looking on the conditions which have been laid down for the organization of a World Cup, please, Secretary General, correct me. It is said that in principle the World Cup shall be played in June, July, and it is also said in the same document which has been signed by everybody, by both parties, it has been signed, that anyway, if something happened, the FIFA Executive Committee can change the venue of the World Cup, can take away the rights to organize the World Cup. Everything we can do. So we can also say we play in winter. Well, if you like that I apologize to you, I do it.
Aziz.
My name is Aziz. I'm from State Doha newspaper. My question is for Mr. Theo. First of all, thank you very much for the progress FIFA is doing for football in the world. I just want to check with Mr. Theo. You've been a critic of Qatar 2022 and the fact that the Ethics Committee has clearly stated, as you said now, that Qatar has done nothing wrong in the bidding process. How you can explain to me your statement that the World Cup should be taken back from Qatar, and the fact that the FIFA official committee, which you are also a lawyer, saying that Qatar has nothing to do, has not done anything wrong. How you could see this parody? Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to explain this from my point of view. the decision of attribution of the World Cup was, according to my criteria, wrong. There were other competitors and there was a ranking, and nevertheless there was a decision in favor of Qatar. I think that was wrong, and I will not stop criticizing it if necessary. But that is not criticizing Qatar, but it is a criticism against those who took that vote. But a decision which has been taken, even if you think it's wrong, is still legally valid. As long as there are no criteria that will put into question this legal decision and would even give patent proof of a wrong decision. But that will only be evaluated from my point of view when all the processes have been terminated, which led to that decision, and when the Ethics Committee will have finished and published its investigations. This is my position. I've always had it. I still have this conviction, and I will gladly mention it if necessary.
It's already 3 o'clock, but the President told me to go on with a few other questions, so I'm more than happy. Martin, please.
Thank you. It's Martin Ziegler from the Press Association, Mr. Blatter. We've not heard anything about about your presidential election campaigns. Are you going to put forward release a manifesto? When are you going to do that? And because as far as you've not said anything about your presidential election campaign at all since you became a candidate.
Thank you for the question. I am the FIFA president, and I am the FIFA president until the 29th of May, until the last item on the Congress agenda, which is called election of the president. I have been asked by national associations in all the 6 confederations to be a candidate. They put me as a candidate, but I am still the FIFA president. I'm not campaigning. I am doing my job as FIFA president, and I will do it until the last day of my mandate, which was given to me in 2011.
Please.
My question to Mr. President, after your visit to Doha and you see His Highness Sheikh Tamim, how's your impression about this visit and how you see Qatar preparations in the ground? I mean the stadiums, worker conditions, and the communication with the local committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this question. Definitely, you are right. I met the Amir, Mr. Tamim, His Highness, and we spoke about the all over geopolitical matters. But the FIFA's delegation with the Secretary General, they came on the one. So please, Jérôme, give the answer that you can give. You accept that he can answer it, I cannot answer it.
I mean, the relationship with the local organizing committee are good. I mean, after the final meeting we had with the task force to discuss about the date, we had the first board meeting with Hassan Al-Tawadi and his team. We went to one of the stadium, Al-Waqar, and we visited the stadium, and again, where the workers are accommodated for the construction of the stadiums. And I think that if Qatar is speeding up the organization of the World Cup or the construction of the World Cup, they would be ready at the same time, more or less, than the 2018 FIFA World Cup, because all the construction sites are going very fast, and there's the wish to be ready far in advance before the World Cup 2022. So it will be, as we say, the first ever compact World Cup we will play. Maybe for the first time, you journalists as us will be able to attend the 64 games.
Last 2 questions, Andrew, and then up there. Yes.
Thank you, Walter. Andrew Warshaw from Inside World Football. Mr. President, I know you, at this press conference, you don't want to be bombarded with questions about the election. I fully take that on board. But could you at least clarify Martin's question in terms of whether you will or will not be issuing a manifesto, since obviously you've been telling us for many months that you wish to complete your mission, and it would be good to see specifically what those items are in that mission. Thank you.
My manifesto is the work I have done in the last years in FIFA. I am now 40 years in FIFA, and I am 17 years the president of FIFA. This is my manifesto.
Last question over there.
My question is for Mr. Theo. You were speaking about the condition of workers in Qatar, and you criticized the bad condition, as you see. Have you ever visited Qatar, or have been invited to visit Qatar to see what's going on with the workers?
I have been invited repeatedly by Qatar, but I don't think that visits of this kind can be a standard or any kind of proof to ascertain whether there have been progress in the human rights remit. Let me just remind you that 2 years ago, when for the first time casualties and fatalities had been mentioned in building sites, not for the World Cup, but building sites in general, in the Executive Committee and in discussions with institutions and politicians and with the Organizing Committee of Qatar, this situation had been discussed. FIFA has not evaded responsibility, but started saying and repeating that a country as wealthy as Qatar should be able to create responsible working conditions for the laborers. And then Qatar requested a report to be made. And such a report is much more in-depth than the visit of yours truly. And this report has ascertained that many points of criticism forwarded were correct. And the visit of yours truly cannot make much of a difference. But what was good, for instance, was the visit of the president of FIFA, where he, at the top level of government, he mentioned these problems and also reminded of the conscientious level of relationship with the laborers and workers. Now, today, we have received information in the Executive Committee, and all this information indicates that Qatar, more perhaps than in the past, is assuming its responsibility. And it's not just responsibility for sports fields and concrete, but also for people. And I would like to say that these efforts, intense efforts, and I hope that these intense efforts are going to influence the economy and politics in such a way that a stronger commitment will be felt as in the past, and that cannot certainly be replaced by my visits or controls. And these are processes that are not finished from one day to the next, but here, when you look at the kafala system in Qatar, you need time for that, for changes. But what it really needs is credible information over the development over the next few months. Today, we have reached a point where, thanks to the efforts of FIFA, I am now I'm convinced that there's the idea of doing things that are necessary, but also that something must be created which can be sustainable over a long time beyond the World Cup. And also when you look at the climatic conditions, people having to work there, if something can be done, and if we convince people to create a sustainable change over the long term, then I believe that all this will come to a good ending. But I believe that we may also get in reports over the next few months and years which will make us doubt. And for this, we need credible representatives, and we need objective reports people saying this has changed, this has not changed, this still is work in progress. And in the best interests of the Qataris, I believe it's a huge possibility to change a controversial attribution of a World Cup in such a positive sense that people will say, yes, originally I was against it, but then suddenly this becomes something positive for the human rights situation in that country and the neighboring countries, and then it really may make sense. But a visit of yours truly will not change anything. Many thanks, Dr. Zwanziger. This
for all, and maybe
I just want to thank you for your ongoing interest to football and FIFA. I would just like to mention one thing also, that our ethics committee is now working faster, and one of the cases has been solved. Now the case of Dr. Dog, and I'm very happy about that. But another one, and this comes from Brazil, this poor Mr. Villan, who was from the Barham organization, and he was in jail. He was in jail for nothing, finally, and this has been proven. So you see that we are on a I would say also on a good track. Thank you. You have at disposal, if you need some additional information, you have disposal our, they have,
Yes,
if they want.
and,
Thank you so much. If they want.
the finance report in all 4 languages, you can just pick it up now. Thank you.